Welcome to another episode of What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? I hope that you've been enjoying the series. Now, if this is your first time, I'm Karen E. Osborne, author of Getting It Right and the upcoming Tangled Lies, which comes out on July 22nd. And I have a very special guest today that I am happy to introduce to you. This is my son, Robert Osborne, and he's Bob, and he is the principal and the owner of the Osborne Group, which is a minority-owned international consulting and training company that works with not-for-profits. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you, Mom. Happy to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. So before we talk about your writing life, tell us a little bit about, because I always loved when you bought books, when we didn't have Kindle, we didn't have tablets. I loved going to the bookstore at Christmas time and buying you books, because the person who, I would ask to help me find the books, he would like, oh, this is like such a great list. I mean, they were always so impressed that I had to confess, I said, well, they're not for me. So I'm always interested in what amazing books you are reading. So what would you like to share with our audience?
Well, I've read a lot of books in the last year during the pandemic. It's probably been the thing I've done the most. And it's one of the things that's helping get me through. So I had to think a little bit about which book I wanted to talk about, because I read a lot of really good ones in the last year. So I'll limit it to maybe the last couple of months. So one really good book is a children's Bible, which is written by Lydia Millet. It might be Millet, I'm not sure. And it is kind of an allegorical story. It's based off of parts of the Old Testament, but set in modern times. This family and their kids end up on an island together and for vacation, and the parents are all classmates in college. But strange things start to happen and a storm comes up. So it's kind of a story about the environment and just the world we live in right now and the direction it's headed. It's kind of a story also about, it's just kind of the kids in the story are just they have such distinct voices that it's just very entertaining in and of itself, that the dynamic. And so it's this combination of allegory and just being a good story in and of itself. These characters and how they interact with their parents, and their parents are pretty terrible. So it's
remind us the name of it again and the author.
Children's Bible. Bible, Lydia Millet.
Excellent. And do you have another one?
Yeah, I mean, I read a lot of good books. So I guess the one that probably stands out to me, which I didn't love as much when I was reading it, but it's kind of stayed with me and it's pretty good in the end, is How Much of These Hills is Gold by C Pam Zhang. And it's about two sisters, two Chinese sisters who were actually born in the United States during the gold rush. But their parents both die, and they're abandoned, and they're dragging their dad's body around while they figure out what to do with their lives and what they're going to do. But it's a story about family and about what home is and fitting in, and the power of family and attachments and the like. And the author has a really distinct voice. Again, I mean, it takes a little getting used to, I would say. It's a very austere way of writing, but it's a very distinct voice, and it kind of stayed with me. So I would recommend that as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you. This has been one of the nice things that have happened during this whole series, and I hope it's happening for you guys out there that are listening, is that I have this stack of books now that I have to read because people have recommended so many amazing books. Well, let's switch to your to your writing life. And maybe you could first tell us a little bit about your writer journey. How did you get interested in writing? How did it?
Well, I suspect I got interested in it because of you, uh, although I remember always liking it. But I imagine that you played a pretty big role in it as my mother and a reader and a person who read to me all the time and made sure that I read. And so my earliest memories of writing are probably in kindergarten, I think,
Mm,
writing some books about dinosaurs. I remember that.
I
Um,
remember that.
and then writing during elementary school, lots of little short stories and long, long epics about my hero, Bill Kopp, which is a space adventurer I made up. And then doing some writing in high school for the literary journal there. And then I really stopped for a few years
Mm,
and took it up again probably around the time that I was married. And so my early 30s. And I guess actually that's not true. I guess I was writing like prior to that, and that was like the one short story that I got published,
yeah.
and
Mhm.
then stopped for a while, and then started up again for a while, and then I had my son, and then I stopped for about 12 years, uh, and then took it up again off and on about 2 years ago, but have now really jumped back into it and forcing myself to write at least 15 minutes every day, and I find that it's been a good way to make sure that I do it almost every day. I can't say that it's been every day, but it's been pretty close to every day for the last 2 or 3 months. And so it's been good. I've been really enjoying doing it again. I think the fact that I'm doing it now during COVID is probably not a coincidence. Uh, it's probably something that's kind of helping me get through COVID as well. But regardless, I'm enjoying it and starting to submit stories again. And yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So are you working on anything special right now?
I'm working on two things, two short stories. One is not well formed, and then the other doing revisions. So one is a story about my wife has a podcast, and there was a guy who basically copied her podcast and had all her guests and used her, basically had the same looking website, and I thought it was interesting to write a story from the perspective of why someone would do that, why someone would
Hmm.
kind of rip
Copy.
off someone's podcast. So that was fun, and that's I'm revising that right now based on some feedback that I got, and then I'm writing another story which I'm not totally sure what it's about. I think it's something a little bit about the nature of empathy, but honestly, I'm sort of meandering through that, and we'll see what it ultimately is about. One of the things about writing, forcing yourself to write every 15 minutes, is you do every for 15 minutes every day, as you don't always know exactly where you're going. You don't
Yes.
have time to sit down and map it all out since you got to keep going. But I think it's good. It's good to do it that way, and it'll emerge and might take some revisions. But
Yeah. Little of the discipline of writing. So you mentioned Susie's podcast. Is this the Cookery by the Book? Because I know she does more
yeah,
than one.
agree by the book. Yep.
Yeah, Cookery by the Book, Susie Chase, in case
Yes.
you're interested in wonderful 15-minute podcast about cookbooks. And you also, though, have raised a reader and a writer. I mean, at 11, he finished his first 50,000 word novel. so, so we have a lot of parents who watch this show, a lot of grandparents as well who watch this show. And I wonder if you could just from your own experience, what do you think is important about raising a reader and then perhaps even a writer?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've had two thoughts about it. Is like, one, he has to be a reader because I just think it's important, and so it hasn't really been optional. Of course, I hope he likes it, and I hope he enjoys it, and I think he does most of the time. But to me, it's a important skill to have, to enjoy reading and enjoy being able to find information out for yourself and form your own opinions and go to original sources and being able to know what's going on through your own critical thinking, and as well as just from a well-rounded person standpoint, I think it's important. So I mean, he has to read at least when he was younger, it was an hour a day. Now that he's in high school and he has reading that he has to kind of do anyway, it's more like a half an hour every day. But like that's never been an option in my mind. But to get him to like it, I think also like I was like the thing that got him really into it, I think, was Captain Underpants. Like
Yes.
it's not the the best book in some ways, but he enjoyed it, and it was I think up till then reading was a chore, right? Like there was boring books designed to kind of build reading skills, but they weren't interesting, and so he didn't associate books with being entertaining or transporting or anything very positive. It was just a skill and a thing he had to do. So I think by letting him read what he wanted to read, that he could see that there was value in it and there's something that he might enjoy. So I think those are the two things. Like try to find books that they'll enjoy, but also like it's not an option. To build a habit. On a daily basis.
Yeah, that's really good. That's wonderful. That's what I hope you find it good advice. This has been a great conversation, Bob. I so appreciate you taking the time. I want to let everybody know that if you have a question for Bob, he's not an official, parent consultant, but clearly he has good ideas. So if you have any questions for Bob about reading or writing, you can do it through my website, KarenEosborne.com, or you can find Bob at theosbornegroup.com, OSBORNE, theosbornegroup.com. And I hope that you will be back for the next episode of What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.